Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're going to open up a topic that I think creates a quiet, low-level anxiety for a lot of us.
Hmm.
It's that moment when you sit down to write, say, a cover letter, or you're drafting a proposal, maybe you're just in a high-stakes meeting, and you suddenly feel like your normal vocabulary just isn't, enough.
Right, the imposter syndrome of language.
Exactly.
A very real thing.
It is. You feel like you need to put on a costume. We have this this massive misconception that to sound smart or academic or professional, we have to banish normal English.
Yeah, that we have to use the big words.
We think we need to swap out start for commence, or stop saying look at and start saying investigate. It's this ingrained belief that complexity equals intelligence.
And that's what we call the Latinate trap. We tend to prioritize those heavy single-word Latin verbs because they feel weightier, more, historical.
Right.
But looking at the research we've pulled together for this deep dive, that instinct is actually wrong.
That's the headline here. It's not just sort of wrong, it's completely counterproductive.
It is. When you rely too heavily on those stiff, formal words, emanate, utilize, commence, your communication becomes wooden.
A little robotic, totally.
It creates distance.
Hmm.
And what we found in the source material is fascinating. The true hallmark of high-level, fluid, native-level fluency isn't the $5 words, it's phrasal verbs.
Phrasal verbs, which, just to orient everyone, are those little two-part engines like figure out, set off, or look into.
Precisely. And the myth is that these are too casual.
Yeah, that they're for the coffee shop, not the boardroom.
Exactly. Or the thesis defense.
Right.
But the data shows the opposite. If you analyze high-level debates, top-tier academic journals like Nature or The Lancet, they are absolutely packed with these structures.
So they're the secret code, really.
They're the connective tissue that makes complex ideas flow.
Okay, so our mission today is to decode that usage. We've extracted 25 of the most high-leverage phrasal verbs from the sources. But we aren't just going to read a list, because frankly, I'd fall asleep, and so would you listening.
We need a structure, a narrative.
Right. So we've organized these into a life cycle. We're going to track the life of a project or an academic argument. From the moment the problem starts to the investigation, the trends, the argument, and finally, the conclusion.
It's a great way to visualize it. You're not memorizing vocabulary, you're learning the language of the process.
Let's dive in. Module 1, the beginning. This is origins and causes, because every big analysis starts with figuring out why something is happening.
The why is the foundation.
Yeah.
And the heavyweight champion in academic writing for this is stem from.
Stem from. Okay, so push back on me here.
Yeah.
Why can't I just say comes from? Why is stem from the superior choice?
Well, comes from is a bit flat. It can be geographical. I come from Canada.
Sure.
But stem from gives you a specific visual metaphor. Think of a plant. You have a root system, and the problem grows out of that root. It implies a deep structural origin.
So it's about depth.
Depth and causality. In the sources, stem from is almost exclusively used to diagnose problems. And here's the key nuance. It's passive. You are looking back at the root.
So you wouldn't say I stem from a decision.
No, you say the current economic volatility stems from a lack of regulatory oversight.
I see. It sounds much more analytical. You aren't just blaming, you're diagnosing the root structure.
It frames you as an analyst, not just an observer.
Okay, staying in this cause and effect zone, we have a pair that I think tricks people up all the time. Result in versus bring about.
Ah, yes.
To me, they both just mean cause. Are they actually different?
They are, but it's more about the vibe, if we can use that term.
Yeah.
Result in is your objective scientific cause and effect. A leads to B. It's very detached.
Can you give me an example?
Sure, you'd see this in a lab report. The sudden increase in ocean temperatures resulted in a significant loss of biodiversity. It's clinical, data-driven.
Okay. And bring about.
Bring about has a soul. It implies agency, effort. You usually see bring about when discussing social change, policy, leadership. You don't just result in a revolution.
You bring about change.
Exactly. So if you're writing a strategy document, you wouldn't say, this plan will result in a better culture. It's too passive.
Too weak.
Right. You'd say, this initiative aims to bring about a culture of transparency. It carries the weight of intention.
That's a crucial distinction. Okay, now sometimes the start of a problem isn't a slow growth. Sometimes it's a spark. That brings us to set off.
Set off is kinetic, explosive. In academic or journalistic contexts, this is your trigger word. It starts a chain reaction.
The example in our notes was perfect for this. The publication of the study set off a worldwide debate.
Right. It implies the study didn't just start a conversation. It was the match in the powder keg. It conveys the volatility of the reaction.
Got it. Okay, rounding out our origins section, one for the data nerds, account for.
Oh, yeah. If you work with numbers, account for is non-negotiable.
I feel like I see this in every pie chart description ever written.
You do. It essentially means to constitute or to explain the amount of. So instead of saying renewable energy made up 40%, which sounds a bit elementary,
You say renewable energy resources account for 40% of the total power consumption.
it's precise. But it has a second meaning, too. It can mean to explain why something happened, as in, how do you account for this discrepancy in the budget?
Ah, so it's about justification as well as composition?
Exactly. It demands an explanation.
Okay, so we've established the origins, we know where the problem stems from, what triggered it. Now we have to roll up our sleeves. Module 2, the action of investigation.
The research phase. And now I'm going to make a bold claim here.
Go for it.
The MVP, the most valuable player of academic verbs, lives in this module. It is carry out.
I love this one because it's such an easy upgrade. We tend to just say do, we did an experiment, we did a survey.
Please stop saying do. Do is generic. Carry out implies a protocol, a methodology. You carry out a study. You carry out a risk assessment.
It sounds like there were steps involved.
It sounds professional. It signals to your reader, I didn't just wing this. I followed a procedure.
So the team plans to carry out a series of interviews. It immediately adds weight. Now, in that research, you have different modes of looking at things. We have look into and sift through.
A great pair. Think of look into as your detective mode. It's broad. You are investigating a problem. The committee is looking into the allegations.
You're just peering into the box.
Exactly. But sift through is completely different. It gives you a tactile image. Imagine a historian with a mountain of letters. To sift is to separate the gold from the dirt. It implies volume, labor.
So you wouldn't sift through a single email.
No, you sift through data. Analysts had to sift through thousands of transaction records. If you want to emphasize how hard the work was, you use sift through.
That's a great tip. Emphasize the labor. Now, hopefully, after all that sifting, you get that aha moment. You figure out the answer. But I have to ask, isn't figure out a little casual? I feel like my professor would have circled that in red.
In the past, maybe. But language evolves. Determine is fine, but it's a bit robotic. Figure out has gained a specific place in modern academia. It describes the cognitive struggle of solving a complex puzzle.
So it honors the difficulty.
Exactly. It took years for scientists to figure out the structure of the DNA molecule. If you said determine, it sounds like they just measured it. Figure out implies the puzzle.
I like that. It keeps the human element, and once you've figured it out, you need to point out your findings.
Point out is your laser pointer. You use this in an argument to direct the audience's attention to a specific fact they might have missed.
Critics were quick to point out the flaws in the methodology.
Right. It's directive. You were taking the listener by the hand and saying, look at this specific thing right here.
Okay, we've done the research, but the world we are studying isn't static. That brings us to Module 3. Change and evolution. Trends.
This is a huge part of professional writing describing shifts over time. And we have a really important distinction here between two things disappearing. Die out versus phase out.
These two get confused a lot, but the difference is about who's in the driver's seat, isn't it?
100%. Die out is natural, biological or cultural extinction. Local dialects are dying out as globalization spreads. It happens on its own.
Whereas phase out sounds like a manager with a clipboard.
That's exactly it. Phase out is deliberate, it's bureaucratic, a policy decision. The government decided to phase out coal-powered plants by 2030.
So nature doesn't phase things out.
No, people phase things out. Nature lets things die out. If you mix those up, you confuse the agency of the situation.
That's a great mental check. Now, what about when things are going the other way? Increasing. We have buildup.
Build-up is about accumulation over time. Slow, steady, and sometimes threatening. You hear it in environmental science constantly. Carbon dioxide began to build up in the atmosphere.
It creates that sense of rising pressure.
It can, or it can be positive, like building up trust. But the core concept is layers being added over time.
Speaking of energy, I really like this next one. Gear up. It feels very active.
It is. Gear up is about preparation. Imagine a machine engaging its gears before it starts moving.
Right, that moment of potential energy.
That's it. The university is gearing up for the international conference. It captures that buzzing energy of preparation.
And finally, for trends, we have Catch on. This is pure sociology.
It is. It's about the tipping point. When a theory or a tool goes from being weird to being fashionable, despite its complexity, the new software didn't take long to catch on.
It implies that moment where the crowd accepts it.
Yes, the transition from niche to mainstream.
Okay, we've tracked the trends. Now we have to write the paper, make the case. Module 4, structuring the argument.
This is where you win or lose your audience, and it starts with a two-step dance. Put forward and back up.
Walk us through the dance.
Put forward is how you professionally suggest a theory. It's tentative but confident. You don't say, here's my idea. You say, several hypotheses have been put forward.
It sounds polite, like you're offering it up for critique.
That's that scientific humility.
Yeah.
But because you're humble, you must back up that idea. In academia, to back up means to provide support, evidence.
You need to back up your arguments with reliable citations.
Exactly. Without the backup, the thing you put forward just collapses.
Just an opinion.
Just an opinion. And to get that backup, you often have to draw on other work. This is a lovely verb.
Draw on.
It's beautiful. It implies a well or a reservoir. You aren't stealing ideas. You're drawing from the deep well of your discipline. The philosopher draws on ancient Greek texts.
This shows lineage. It shows you've done your reading.
It connects you to the past conversations in your field.
But sometimes those conversations are incredibly complicated. That brings us to the mark of a truly great communicator. Breakdown.
Yes. If you can't break down a complex idea, you probably don't understand it yourself. To break down is to dismantle a complex system into digestible parts.
The author breaks down the theory of relativity into simple concepts.
That is the highest compliment you can pay an academic writer. They broke it down for us.
And the last one for our argument section is the Sherlock Holmes verb, rule out.
The process of elimination. It's essential for the scientific method. The medical team was able to rule out infection as a cause. It's how you narrow down the truth by deciding what the truth isn't.
It's almost more powerful than finding the answer.
It is. It clears the path.
Okay, we are in the home stretch. We've done the research, built the argument. Now we need to manage the process and finish. Module 5 is management and conclusion.
And managing a project is rarely smooth sailing. That's why we need carry on versus keep up.
Carry on always makes me think of that British poster, keep calm and carry on. Is that the right vibe?
It is accurate. Carry on implies continuing despite difficulty. It has grit. Despite the lack of funding, the team decided to carry on with the research.
It implies an internal will to finish.
Right. Whereas keep up feels more external, like you're on a treadmill.
That's a great image.
Keep up is about pace and standards. It is difficult for small businesses to keep up with the rapid changes in AI. You're running just to stay in the same place.
One is about grit, the other is about speed. But sometimes, despite all that, things just go wrong. Plans fall through.
This is the heartbreak verb. It's used when a plan or a deal fails to happen. The merger between the two giants fell through at the last minute.
And it feels passive again, doesn't it? It's not someone killed the deal, it just collapsed.
It implies a structure that couldn't hold its own weight. Very common in business news.
And when things go wrong, sometimes we need to call for action.
Call for. Yeah. This is authoritative. It isn't asking politely. It means a situation requires or demands a specific action. The current crisis calls for immediate and drastic measures.
It puts the burden on the listener.
It acts as a moral imperative.
And finally, when it's all said and done, we wrap up.
The perfect closer. It's not just stopping. Stopping is abrupt. Wrapping up implies completion. You are tying a bow on the package.
To wrap up the session, I would like to summarize the main findings.
It signals to the audience, we are done and we did what we came here to do. Satisfaction.
And that is exactly what we are doing right now. But before we go, you mentioned something when we were prepping this, a pattern in the prepositions.
Yes. This is a huge takeaway for the listeners. It really helps if you're stuck. Look at the prepositions.
Break it down for us.
Okay, look at the word out. Die out. Phase out. Carry out. Rule out.
They all imply something leaving or finishing or being externalized.
Exactly. Completion or removal. Now look at up. Build up, gear up, keep up, back up.
They are all constructive. They add structure. They go vertical.
Right. Up implies increase, support, or preparation. So if you're blanking on a verb, think about the direction of the action. Is it finishing? Try out. Is it growing or supporting? Try up.
That is such a helpful mental shortcut. It turns it from a memory test into a logic puzzle.
It makes it intuitive, and that's the goal.
So what's the final thought here? What's the one thing to take away from this?
I'd say this. Mastering these 25 verbs isn't about looking smart. It's about being authoritative.
How so?
Because when you use stem from instead of come from or carry out instead of do, you are signaling that you understand the nuance of the process. You are signaling that you are an insider.
And you sound natural doing it. You don't sound like a thesaurus that just exploded.
Exactly. Natural confidence wins every time. If you can replace your stiffest, most robotic Latinate words with these phrasal verbs, you won't sound less academic. You will sound like the person in charge.
I think that's the challenge for the week. Pick 3 of these. Use stem from, use carry out, use break down. See if the room reacts differently.
They will.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you can take these verbs and put them forward in your next big project.
And carry on learning.
See you next time.
Okay, I have a confession to make. It's a bit embarrassing, but I'm feeling a lot of people do this. I was drafting this really important email to a client yesterday. High stakes, big money involved. And I caught myself just staring at the screen, completely paralyzed. I'd written the sentence, I want to talk about your idea. And then just my brain froze. I thought, no, talk about it sounds way too simple. I sound like a toddler. So what do? I open a thesaurus. And like 5 minutes later, I'd written, I wish to discourse regarding your proposition.
Discourse regarding your proposition? Wow.
Yeah.
That's hefty.
It was awful. I sounded like some kind of Victorian robot. But I have this anxiety I call it the thesaurus syndrome, that little voice in your head that says, simple words are for simple people. And if I want to sound smart, I need to use these big multi-syllable Latin words like emanate or accumulate or investigate.
That anxiety is so incredibly common. We're all conditioned, usually by some bad academic writing in college, to believe that complexity equals intelligence. We think if a sentence is hard to read, it must be smart. But here's the irony, and this is what we're really deep diving into today. If you actually analyze the highest levels of communication, I'm talking top-tier academic journals, intense boardroom debates,
Right.
The language isn't actually that stiff, obscure Latin.
It's not. Because I got to say, when I read some of those papers, they feel pretty dense to me.
The concepts are dense for sure, but the verbs, the verbs that drive the sentences, a lot of time they are phrasal verbs. The real heartbeat of natural sophisticated English is that verb plus particle combination, things like stem from, carry out, or put forward.
See, that's surprising to me. I've always sort of categorized phrasal verbs as like coffee shop talk. I ran into a friend or I gave up on my diet. They feel casual. Are you really telling me I can use them in a dissertation?
Not only can you use them, you really must use them if you want to sound like a native expert. If you rely only on the Latin equivalents, if you say establish instead of set up every single time, you don't sound professional. You sound like a textbook. Phrasal verbs, they bridge that gap between formal writing and natural sophisticated speech. They add a precision and flow that fancy words can sometimes lack.
Okay, that is a big claim. And precision is exactly what I'm after. I want to get past just knowing English and really master the nuance. So we've got a stack of research here on 25 of these power verbs, but we're not just going to list them off, right?
No list. We're going to deconstruct how they actually work. We'll look at the whole process of academic work, from finding a problem to doing the research to arguing your point. And we're going to crack the code on those little particles, the ups and outs, so you can understand the logic, not just memorize definitions.
I like the sound of cracking the code. So let's start at the very beginning. Every research paper, every business proposal, it starts with a problem. We have to explain where that problem comes from.
Origins, exactly. And the generic way to say this is come from. The problem comes from X. It's just a bit flat, a bit boring.
And my thesaurus brain immediately wants to jump to originates.
Which is fine, but it can be a little dry. The real power player here is stem from.
Stem from? Huh. It sounds kind of botanical.
That's the whole point. Think about that imagery, a plant stem growing out of a root system. When you say the economic crisis stems from a lack of regulation, you're not just saying X caused Y, you're implying a deep-rooted lineage. You're saying the problem grew kind of organically out of that condition.
Oh, okay. So it implies a history. It's not just a single event.
Exactly. A fundamental origin. Now, compare that to another origin verb, set off.
Set off. Yeah, that feels totally different. That feels more like an explosion.
Right. If stem from is a slow-growing plant, set off is a tripwire. It's a trigger. You use this when one event starts a whole chain reaction, often one that feels a little bit out of control.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. You probably wouldn't say the study stemmed from a debate. You'd say the controversial finding set off a fierce debate among geneticists. It captures that immediacy, that volatility.
Okay, I see the difference. Stem from is the root cause. Set off is the spark. But what about something we want to happen, like intentional change?
Then you're looking for bring about. This is the absolute go-to for policy and social change. It implies effort. You don't just cause improvement, you work to bring it about. Like the new laws aim to bring about a more inclusive society.
That does sound more active. It sounds like leadership.
Mm.
Okay, now I want to challenge you on this next one. The sources highlight account for.
A classic, yes.
But isn't account for just a fancy way of saying is? You know, if I say oil accounts for 20% of the economy, I'm really just saying oil is 20% of the economy. Why the extra words?
Because is passive. Account for is doing some serious heavy lifting in statistics. It implies a justification and explanation. When you look at a pie chart, that slice isn't just sitting there. It is responsible for that portion of the whole.
Responsible for it. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Renewable energy accounts for 40% of the grid. It means if you did the accounting, if you tallied it all up, that's the explanation for that chunk. It adds this layer of mathematical authority that the word is just doesn't have.
Okay, I'll grant you that. Account for definitely sounds like you've done the math. Which I guess brings us to the next phase. We've identified the problem, we know the stats, now we have to actually do the work, the research itself.
The action phase. And there is one phrasal verb here that really separates the students from the professors.
I think I know which one you mean. You don't do a study.
You never do a study. No.
Never. You carry out a study.
Precisely. Carry out, do is too brief. It sounds like you're just washing the dishes or something. Carry out implies a mission. It implies a complex, multi-step process that you see through all the way to completion. The team plans to carry out a series of clinical trials.
It sounds weighty, like you're carrying a burden almost.
It implies professional execution. Now, once you're carrying out that research, you have to investigate things. And this is where I see people fall into the SOAR syndrome trap constantly. They love the word investigate.
Well, investigate sounds serious. We need to investigate the error.
It is serious. And in fact, it can be too serious. Investigate can sound almost criminal. Police investigate crimes. The FBI investigates corruption. If you're in a committee meeting and you just want to look into a clerical error, investigate can sound really aggressive.
So what's the alternative then?
Yes.
Look into.
Yes.
Look into. I have to be honest, I'll look into it. It sounds like what I tell my boss when I plan to completely forget about something. It feels a little dismissive.
And in casual conversation, it can be, you're right. But in academia and administration, look into is the standard diplomatic term for scrutiny. The committee is looking into the allegations. It implies we are examining the facts, but without presuming any guilt. It's softer, but it still means a deep examination is happening.
So it's about temperature. Investigate is hot. Look into is cool and professional.
Exactly. And once you've looked into the data, you have to deal with the sheer volume of it all. And that's where sift through comes in.
Oh, I love the visual of that one. It's like panning for gold.
It is. Investigate is looking at a specific thing. Sifting through is about dealing with the huge, messy pile of information. Historians had to sift through thousands of letters to find the one reference. It really conveys the struggle of the research.
And hopefully after all that sifting, you solve the puzzle. You figure it out. But again, figure out feels so informal. I can't figure out this crossword puzzle. Can I really use that in a formal paper?
You absolutely can, but the context is everything. In a formal setting, figure out implies the resolution of a really complex logical problem. It took decades for scientists to figure out the structure of DNA.
Okay, when you put it that way, it sounds monumental.
It emphasizes the mental labor. It's not just finding an answer, it's constructing the solution from all the pieces.
All right, I'm sold on the verbs so far. But earlier you promised to crack the code of the particles, those little second words. You said there's a logic to them, so we don't have to just memorize everything.
Yes, this is really the key to mastery. If you can understand the particle, you can often guess the meaning of a phrasal verb you've never even heard before. Let's look at two of the most common ones in academia, out and up.
Okay, out. My first instinct is out means outside, like leaving a room.
Sometimes, yeah. But in abstract concepts, out usually implies one of two things. making something public or visible, or, and this is the big one, completion and removal.
Removal.
Think about the phrase die out.
Like the dinosaurs.
Right. The species died out. It's not just that they died, they were removed from existence entirely. Or think about run out. We ran out of time. The supply is gone. It's empty.
Okay, so out means zero. Empty, finished.
Precisely. And that's why we use the term phase out in policy. It's very specific. It doesn't just mean stop immediately. It means a gradual reduction down to zero. The government plans to phase out coal.
So it's a managed disappearance.
Exactly. Now compare that to up. What does up usually signal to you?
Direction, I guess. Going higher.
In a literal sense, yes. But metaphorically, up usually means an increase in intensity or preparation.
Intensity. How so?
Well, think about the difference between clean and clean up.
Clean is just washing something. Clean up implies, I don't know, finishing the job, getting it all done.
It implies doing it thoroughly, to completion. Or eat versus eat up. If you eat up, you finish everything. It intensifies the verb. In academic work, we see this all the time with build up.
Carbon dioxide levels are building up in the atmosphere.
Right, accumulating, increasing in intensity. Or another one is gear up.
The university's gearing up for the conference.
Exactly. It's not just preparing, it's about increasing activity and preparation. It's the ramp up.
Okay, let me test this. What about catch on? If a theory catches on, how does up apply there?
Think of like a flame catching on a piece of wood. If it catches on, the popularity goes up. Ah, okay. So the theory caught on means it gained traction. The popularity increased.
You've got it. So when you see up, think. Is something getting bigger, more intense, or being prepared? When you see out, think. Is it disappearing or finishing? That simple heuristic can solve like 80% of the confusion.
That is actually incredibly useful. It turns it from a memory test into more of a logic puzzle.
That's the whole goal.
Okay, so we've done the research, we know the particle code. Now we enter the battlefield. The argument. In academia, you can't just have an opinion, you have to defend it.
Argumentation is where precision matters most. You have to sound confident, but also open to critique. And the standard phrase for introducing an idea is put forward.
Put forward. It sounds very physical, like you're putting something on a table.
It is. Imagine a poker table. You're sliding your chips into the center. You are putting forward a hypothesis. Several theories have been put forward to explain the market crash.
And the reason we say put forward instead of just say said is because it's vulnerable. Exactly. When you put something forward, it's out there to be examined, to be attacked, or to be accepted. It invites scrutiny. And because you put it forward, you now have to rack it up.
You got to have the receipts.
In a manner of speaking, yes. Backup is a fascinating one because back usually means reverse. But here it means support, like a backbone.
You need to back up your claims with evidence. It's so direct.
If you don't back it up, the argument just collapses. But sometimes an argument is too big to swallow whole. You need to simplify it for your audience.
You need to break it down.
Break down. And again, don't confuse this with a car breaking down, which means stopping. In analysis, breaking down means dismantling a complex idea to see how all the parts work. The author breaks down the theory into 3 main components.
It's like analyzing by disassembly.
Okay. Now, what about the scientific method? We spend a lot of time trying to prove things wrong.
Yes, elimination is absolutely key.
Yeah.
And the verb here is rule out.
The doctors ruled out infection. It's such a strong phrase, isn't it? It comes from the idea of drawing a line with a ruler through an item on a list. It means we have considered it, and we have determined that it is impossible. Even saying we cannot rule out the possibility of error sounds so much more professional than just we aren't sure if it's an error or not.
It sounds definitive. Even in your uncertainty, you're being precise about what you don't know.
That's it, exactly. And when you're building this whole argument, you're very rarely starting from scratch. You're standing on the shoulders of giants. You're drawing on previous work.
Drawn, like drawing a picture.
No, more like drawing water from a well. You're extracting value from an existing resource. The philosopher draws on ancient Greek texts to support her modern view.
That is a beautiful image. You're not just reading them, you are pulling sustenance from them.
It shows connection. It shows continuity with the past.
Okay, so we built this massive argument, but now we have to talk about the reality of work. Projects, timelines, management, things. They rarely go according to plan.
The project flow phase. And this is where you need verbs that convey resilience and pace.
The great British classic. keep calm and carry on.
It's a cliche, but carry on really is the academic standard for continue. But it has a specific flavor. It usually implies continuing despite some kind of interruption or difficulty.
So the team decided to carry on with the experiment despite the power outage.
Right. If you just said continue, it's neutral. Carry on implies a certain determination. But sometimes just carrying on isn't enough. You have to move fast. You have to keep up.
This feels like the modern condition. I just can't keep up with all the new literature.
It's all about pace. Keeping up implies there's a race happening. In a fast-moving field like AI, researchers really struggle to keep up with new developments. It conveys that pressure.
But let's be real. Sometimes you can't keep up. Sometimes the deal just collapses.
The deal falls through.
Ugh, I hate that feeling. We thought we had the funding, but it fell through.
It's a vivid image, isn't it? Like a floor just collapsing underneath you. It's so much more emotive than just saying, canceled. The merger fell through due to legal issues. It implies a structure that failed to hold.
And when that happens, when the floor falls out, that's usually when we get serious. We demand action.
We call for action.
The situation calls for drastic measures.
This is one of the strongest verbs you can possibly use. It's not asking. It's not suggesting. It is a moral or logical requirement. The climate crisis calls for immediate intervention. It puts the onus on the listener. You have to act.
Wow. We have covered a lot of ground. I mean, from the roots of the problem to the collapse of the deal.
We have, and notice something, we've been speaking plain English this whole time. We didn't need to use a single obscure Latinate term to describe all these complex relationships.
It feels natural. It feels human.
That's the secret. Phrasal verbs allow you to be precise without being cold or robotic.
So I guess we should probably, how should I put this, conclude the session.
You could say conclude, or I think you might want to wrap up.
Wrap up, of course.
Think of wrapping a gift. You're gathering all the loose ends, you're folding them in, and you're making it neat and presentable. To wrap up our discussion, let's summarize the main points.
It's a satisfying end. So here's the takeaway for everyone listening. The next time you are sitting at your computer, paralyzed by that thesaurus syndrome, trying to decide if you should utilize or implement or formulate, just stop.
And ask yourself, is there a phrasal verb that does the job better?
Instead of investigate, maybe try look into. Instead of establish, maybe try set up. Just see if it changes the tone of your writing.
Chances are it's going to make you sound less like a machine and a lot more like a master of your subject.
I'm going to delete discourse regarding your proposition from my drafts folder right now.
Please do. Talk about your ideas. Perfectly fine. It's great, in fact.
Thanks for the deep dive, everyone. Let these words sink in. We'll see you next time.